Okay, so this time I'll talk about EYWA. It's a distributed graph engine, the Huawei Mind platform. However, different from my previous talks, today I will not go to any technical details about the platform itself or the engine itself. But I want to talk about some use cases from the real industry perspective. Because, after being, participating in the LDBC conference for a couple of times, we know there are so many good activities. So I want to see if we provide some interesting industry use cases to see how we can discuss or offline to see to foster some possibility, some possible collaborations. Okay, so again, I always start with my slides with the introduction about Huawei because I'm proud of this company for its very fast growth in recent years. Right now, it reached 1,700 employees, and last year it reaches like 75 billion US dollar revenue. The company is quite global. If you look at all the dots in this map, for all the brown square, it means like research and development center. Okay, then for all the gray dots, it means like a service center. So as you can see, in this company, there are quite a few people working on these services and also research and development. Then the headquarters is in Shenzhen, China, very close to Hong Kong. And the major business is the carrier business, the consumer business, and the enterprise business. But in addition to its business groups, we actually have an organization called the 2012 Lab. It's a very large-scale research lab where we do the some half research, half engineering work to support the business of a company. So different from some some companies that worked before. In this company, the research is more like business oriented. That's why when I talk about graph, I was thinking about the graph use cases from our business first. This is also true for many other companies in the Silicon Valley in California because there's a so-called like a dog food theory. It's like a dog food you made, you will try it yourself first. Okay. So therefore, we are thinking about the businesses from the consumer, from the carrier, and from the enterprise, like cloud computing, something like that. Okay. For us, we are building a platform in the company for this company, and the platform actually is artificial intelligence platform. It's called like a Huawei Mind. Actually, I think it's very similar to like a Google Brain. It's a AI. Comprehensive AI platform, but somehow it's called Mind. And this is very large scale, project. We have a global team, hundreds of employees working on this project. I'm the chief architect of this platform. So in this platform, we do have a specific engine which is about graph computing and the graph data management. So that is very related to the efforts in this organization. But in the meanwhile, at different levels, like knowledge, like analytics, and even some basic algorithms, I think they are very related to some graph computing or graph management as well. For example, I will give the first use case on this slide. This use case is a very typical use case in my company. It's like, as I show in the very first slide, we have a lot of gray dots all across this world. Each dot is a service center. So in the service center, there are some customer services. They receive the calls of other emails from the end user. They may have something wrong with their cell phone or with their devices. Some of these customer services running by the carriers, but many of them are actually running by Huawei directly. So it will be very important or very helpful, if we have like chatbot to help, okay, because it will help to increase the productivity. Then behind this scenario, we know it will typically behind the chatbot there will be a large graph, okay. Large graph is what for a company? It's basically a persistency of the knowledge, right? Which used to be carried out by the human beings. So of course we could write down these knowledges and organize this knowledge as a graph, as a large graph, maybe RDF graph. But more than that, once we have this large graph, it will help us improve our service. Or let's make it more technical. It will help us improve our analytics. And it turns out, we could accumulate more knowledges. So this is actually a circle. This is called knowledge-based AI. A very fundamental, idea for the last a year or so when the AI is on the, on the top line of the news, right? So we're thinking about it. In this circle, one of the very important process or functionality that we should provide to the service center, the service people should be able to search for some knowledges. Okay, so in addition to a large graph that we can see in the first chart, in this chart, in the search process, there are some more graphs involved. Okay, firstly, for every single search we want to make, the search itself will be expanded. Then it's like the box in the middle. Okay, the cube in the middle. Okay, the orange one is probably the original query. Then the single query will be augmented to form a graph, because for this query it may be related to something else. Okay, as a result, we have a small graph here. Okay, and how we can augment this query? Okay, we have to use the knowledge graph. Okay, that's the first. Then after that, for each sub-question, sub-queries, it can be processed by different engines. And then for different engines, they may consume different data. For example, some of the data may be just raw data. Okay, then many of the data are just structured data, which can be a graph, or it can be some business procedures, as I show on the bottom of the slide. It's typically a graph. Okay. So which means that many different heterogeneous engines are consuming different graphs to generate some candidate data. Then the candidate results are kind of aggregated or merged together to form the final answer. Okay, and in this process, well, actually, this process is pretty similar to the deep QA in IBM. The first stage of the IBM Watson. Okay, so in this process, you can see graph appears everywhere. Okay. Then, in this process, how can we consume the different data? So here is a chart about it. If some of our audience attend the ResDamp retreat this year, okay. By the way, ResDamp it used to be called AMP Lab. It's from Berkeley. Yeah, it make a lot of impact in the big data. Okay, they make some visions for this year, and one of them is the explainability of the analytics. Okay, so when we want to make the analytics more explainable, then we have to associate the results with some raw evidence. And in this, for this reason, we want to build a graph to connect very different, raw data or different forms of the data. So that when we get a result, we will tell you why we get such a result, why the performance is improved. This is much different from what we observed from the deep learning, where we got very good result, but we don't know why, and we cannot trust it. Okay, and in this process, graph is like a hub to connect different resources together, even though some of the resource itself is a graph, like the knowledge graph. Okay. Then the different analytics can be organized together, use a graph as well. If we, in that case, each node in the graph is a PMML document. Okay. Now after that, we can do some inference to help our service, right? So as an example I gave at the very beginning, one of the questions from the customer could be, okay, my cell phone doesn't work well, so what's the problem? Okay, it's a very simple question, but it can be a very difficult question. How do I know if there's an issue with your cell phone, or with an app in your cell phone, or is there something wrong with our system, or is something else, right? So we have to do some reasoning. We have to do some reasoning under uncertainty, because information we get is very limited, it's incomplete, and the information can be wrong. Okay, so how can we handle those uncertainty? Graphic model, okay, graph plus statistical models. Okay, in our case, where we want to use graph. Okay, so if you are familiar with the major part of this chart, actually is basically the reasoner of the JELA. Okay, I guess some other RDF system has some similar architectures, but somehow which is missing in this pictures, and how can we handle this uncertainty? Okay, and so in addition to the RDF graph, maybe there's something we need to process those uncertainty using a graphic model. Okay, this is something we are looking at it. Then, and last, for graph, it's useful, it's expressive, but the performance is not good typically, because the organization, it's not. I think it's not something wrong with graph. I think it's something wrong with the architecture, the computer architecture today. It's not designed really for graph kind of like data access patterns. So just like the NVIDIA benefit deep learning so much, we really want to look at some techniques that can help graph computing very much. Okay, for example, some like near data computing. Well, like some like NVMe with some like FPGAs inside where we can process data. And where data is. So actually, just within the LDBC organization, we have some efforts working on very compact graph computing. That's probably some potential technologies that can be used for this kind of scenario. Okay, then after those use cases, we go back to take a look about our graph engine. It's just like many graph engines have many layers, and on different layer, we offer different functionalities. As a result, end-to-end, comprehensive graph computing engine. But it's just engine part of the platform, and it serves for this platform, it serves for the business of the company for now. So as I said, before we can, invent a new processor or a new computer architecture to accelerate the computation, what can we do now? Okay, because the company will not wait for the new chip come out. Okay, so this is what we can do. We can use probably some existing techniques from probably GraphG, PSW parallel steady window, which can reduce the random I/O. Okay, and it supports the some computing frameworks or let's say models such as the GAN scanner models. Okay, but in this process we have to map this the PSW model to like sparse matrix. Then the pattern of the data access is much more clear. The significance of the pattern is much more clear, and it helps us to predict what we will do next, what data we need for the next step. Then we could prefetch. By prefetching, we could overlap the computation and the communication or data I/O. Okay. Therefore, the overall throughput can be improved. Okay. The sparse matrix, or let's say the data blocks, is not necessary to be like a regular data partition, because due to the imbalance of the data, some data blocks actually can be combined together. But the scheduler is aware of such combination. Therefore, when the block is brought into the memory, the scheduler is aware of what data is actually in the memory already. Okay, then it can leverage such locality. So if we divide those analytic tasks into those the processor intensive, I/O communication I/O intensive, and those about the disk I/O intensive, then we could overlap if those tasks which utilize different resources, because there's no conflict. Of course, we should ensure there's no violation of the data dependence. Then we could have a relatively high performance graph processing system, and we It's distributed, and we use both the memory and the disk if the memory is not enough. So we can really support very large-scale graphs. We already tested the graph with several dozens of billions of edges, and it runs pretty well. So then, how to query and analyze this graph, or let's say how to consume this engine? Actually, we divide our consumers into different categories. For business users, basically we provide the web-based explorer for them to use. This is pretty like Azure, pretty like the Watson Analytics, okay, from IBM. Then there's an interactive visual front end for them to use. Okay, so it's very friendly, and you don't need them to learn anything. There's no learning curve anymore at all. Then for technical users, if the technical user is a graph technical user, then currently we provide Cypher and the Gremlin, but Cypher is changed. We extended Cypher because we want to do some active query. It's like for dynamic graph or streaming graph, we can continuously monitor data. Okay, that's why we made some minor changes to the current Cypher. Then Gremlin, which is probably useful for the technical users who designs graph, who is aware of the structure of the graph. Okay. Then, of course, this is just some current solutions, and we are looking forward to see, what the LDBC's query language efforts will come out. That's probably something we want to try first. Okay. Then for non-graph technical users, we provide REST APIs and the services on cloud, so they can consume our engine or our platform without knowing much about the technical details about graph itself. We have some experiment results here, but just to show, make the slides complete. Actually, all the details of results is in our publications. You can easily find online. Some of them are in the Attribute Big Data last December. Okay, and more results will come in. So if you are interested in details, we can talk offline. So that's about my talk. So basically, I want to show you some use cases from my enterprise, and if you think your technique is helpful, maybe it's interesting, we can talk about it. Okay, thank you very much. By the way, I would see one of the technical details is about sparse mesh-based accelerator. So my colleague will present it tomorrow. Mm-hmm.
Do you mean your own cloud and offering services to others, or are you cloud bursting or using Amazon's or somebody else's cloud?
So Huawei actually is also a vendor of cloud. So basically, we are using our own cloud to provide service, and our own cloud right now is categorized into 3 different types. So one of them, which is makes sense to our external users, is our public cloud. Yeah. So. We have some team working on the PaaS layer, like platform as service. So we deploy our system onto the PaaS layer. Then it provides, it makes our platform as a service. Yeah.
Perhaps we could have a discussion also with Hassan to see how we could, including grapholytics, appropriate tests for elasticity.
Sure.
Not scalability, but elasticity.
Mm-hmm.
We've done work, and with spec we've defined just a bit over 10 relevant metrics.
Mm-hmm.
So it's clear that something needs to be an agreement between interested parties into what we could actually use in this space.
Sure.
What type of inference are you using there? What type of ontologies, and how complex is the inference that you do?
Oh, the inference. So currently, actually, to be honest, because as I said, this platform is served for our business first. So when we do the inference, we actually use graphical models that more specifically some approximate inference on Bayesian network. Then we have some of course some open source RDF efforts there. Then we also have some we have a thought to kind of like combine some analytics along with the traditional RDF inference. So, but this is still undergoing. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a hybrid system. Yeah. Thanks.
Last, thanks.